My name is David. I'm 45 years old now, and I'm sitting here alone, reflecting on a love story that never really ends, even though it's over. It's a story of how love can be so strong, but also how it can break you. The story of Emily and me. It all began in a small town where nothing really changed. I was just an ordinary guy working at a local garage as a mechanic. My life was predictable, calm, and, to be honest, a bit boring. But everything changed the moment I met Emily. She wasn't like the other girls I'd known. She was different. She had a spark about her, a lightness in her step that seemed to brighten even the dullest days. I first saw her one summer evening at a local cafe. She was laughing with her friends, her eyes sparkling with joy. Something about her made my heart race. We started talking, and before I knew it, we were spending more and more time together. At first, it was just the typical dating routine, going for walks, talking late into the night about everything and nothing. But the more I got to know Emily, the more I realized I wanted something more. She was funny, smart, and beautiful in a way that made me feel like the luckiest guy in the world. It didn't take long for me to fall deeply in love with her. We dated for 2 years before I asked her to marry me. I remember the moment clearly, standing under the old oak tree in the park where we first met. I was nervous, but my heart was certain. I pulled out a ring, looked into her eyes, and asked her to be mine forever. Her answer was a joyful yes, and I knew right then that we were ready to face whatever the future had in store for us, together. We married in a small ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. It wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect. Our life was simple but full of love. We lived in a small house on the outskirts of town. Emily worked as a school teacher, and I continued my work at the garage. We were happy. We had our small world, and that was enough for us. But deep down, we both had dreams. Dreams of something bigger, something more than the simple life we had. Emily and I always talked about moving to America. We both wanted to explore new opportunities, to give our future children a better life. We knew it would be hard, but we believed we could make it work. We saved money, researched visas, and prepared for the big move. When the day finally came, we sold our house, packed our bags, and left everything behind. It was scary, but exciting at the same time. We were starting fresh in a land of opportunity. The journey to America was not easy. We had to leave behind our families, our friends, and everything we knew. We arrived in the United States with nothing but a few suitcases and big dreams. I remember the first night in our tiny apartment in a bustling city. We were tired, overwhelmed, and unsure of what the future would bring. But we had each other, and that made everything seem possible. At first, life in America was full of hope. Emily found a job as a teacher in a local school, and I managed to find work as a mechanic. We struggled to adjust to the new culture and the fast pace of life, but we were determined. There were days when it felt like everything was against us: language barriers, homesickness, and financial stress. But Emily was my rock. She never gave up, even when things seemed impossible. And every time I felt like quitting, she would hold my hand and tell me that we would get through it together. Years went by, and we made a life for ourselves in America. We moved into a bigger apartment, started saving for a house, and even thought about starting a family. It wasn't easy, but we kept working hard, believing that one day, we would have the life we had dreamed about. Emily and I were still so in love. I remember the way she would smile when she saw me after a long day at work, how her eyes would light up when we talked about the future. It felt like we were unstoppable. But life, as we all know, has a way of throwing curveballs. Over time, things began to change. Emily started feeling distant. At first, I thought it was just the stress of life, the long hours, the constant pressure of settling into a new country. But I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. She stopped laughing the way she used to. She stopped talking to me about her day. She began spending more and more time alone, and I felt like there was a wall growing between us. I tried everything I could think of to make things better. I would surprise her with flowers, take her out to dinner, and plan little trips for us. But nothing seemed to make her happy. She wasn't the same person she used to be, and neither was I. The truth was, I was working longer and longer hours to provide for us, but in doing so, I was neglecting her. I wasn't there for her the way I should have been. I thought that if I could just work harder, everything would fall into place. I was wrong. One night, Emily sat me down and told me something that shattered my world. "David," she said, her voice trembling, "I'm not happy. I feel lost. I love you, but I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I want. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not." I was speechless. I had no idea she was feeling this way. It was like a punch to the gut. We had been through so much together, moving to a new country, building a life from scratch, and now she was telling me she was unhappy. It didn't make sense. I begged her to stay, to work through it with me. But Emily had made up her mind. She said she needed time away, time to figure out who she was and what she wanted. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. I tried to keep myself busy, but all I could think about was Emily. I couldn't stop blaming myself. If only I had been more present, more supportive. I realized that I had taken her for granted, assuming that our love would always be enough. But love, I learned the hard way, isn't always enough. Emily moved out of our apartment, and I was left alone in the empty space we had once shared. I tried to distract myself with work, but nothing could fill the hole she had left in my heart. I kept hoping that she would come back, that we could fix what was broken. But as the months passed, I began to accept that our love might not be enough to overcome the changes that had taken place. One day, I heard from a mutual friend that Emily had moved on. She had started a new life, and though part of me wanted to be angry, another part of me was just relieved that she was happy. But I couldn't forget her. I couldn't forget the love we had shared, the life we had built together. I couldn't forget the woman who had once been my everything. Years went by, and I never stopped thinking about Emily. I still loved her, in a way that I knew would never go away. I had moved on in the sense that I had learned to live without her, but I could never truly let go of the love I had for her. She was the first woman I had ever loved, and she would always have a special place in my heart. Maybe some loves are meant to last forever, even if the people who shared them are no longer together. Sometimes, I think about what might have been, about the life we could have had if we had fought harder to stay together. But I don't regret the time we spent together. I don't regret the love we shared. Emily was my first love, my true love, and no matter where life takes us, I will never forget her.